So let's get right into it. The Trump administration has cooked up this massive, ambitious plan to unlock Venezuela's oil reserves, which are, by the way, some of the largest on the entire planet. But this huge pitch, it's hitting a brick wall of skepticism from the very industry it needs to get on board.
And yeah, that brick wall has a name. This is Darren Woods, the CEO of Exxon, and he is not mincing words. His take is just blunt. And that one quote, it pretty much sums up the entire conflict we're talking about. You've got this grand political vision crashing right into the hard-nosed reality of the business world.
But the administration is swinging for the fences here. I mean, really big. President Trump has asked the oil industry to pony up at least $100 billion. So how in the world do you get from uninvestable to a number like that? Well, that's the giant question we're going to unpack right now.
All right. First up, let's look at the administration side of this. What exactly is this plan? What are they pitching to these oil executives behind closed doors?
So the whole thing hinges on a massive geopolitical shift, getting Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro out of the picture, which the U.S. attempted with a raid on January 3rd. The idea is, once he's gone, it's like a golden ticket to tap into the country's huge but pretty much dormant energy potential. You know, what's so interesting here is how the White House is trying to sweeten the deal. They're basically saying, hey, forget about the chaos in Venezuela. You won't have to deal with any of that. They're promising cheaper energy for us here in the U.S., a direct line to the American government, and they'll even ease up on sanctions to get the oil moving. And, this is the big one, all the money will go into U.S.-controlled bank accounts. And this quote from the president himself just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It's a clear, unmistakable signal to the entire global oil market that, as far as the White House is concerned, the game has changed and Venezuela is ready for a new chapter. Okay, so you have this really optimistic pitch on the table. How did the industry react? Well, let's just say lukewarm might be putting it generously. The response from the oil execs tells a story of some serious, deep-seated caution. This chart just lays out the massive disconnect perfectly. On one side, the government is shouting, prime real estate, but the industry is quietly remembering, yeah, we've had our stuff seized there. The White House says you're dealing with us, but the executives are saying, hold on, we need to see significant changes on the ground first. It's like they're speaking two completely different languages. One is the language of political opportunity, and the other is the language of cold, hard financial risk. So where does all this hesitation come from? I mean, why are they so skeptical? To really get it, you've got to look back at the long and, frankly, troubled history foreign oil companies have had in Venezuela. This number right here, it says it all, too. For a company like Exxon, this isn't some theoretical what-if scenario. They've literally had their assets ripped away by the Venezuelan government twice. That kind of experience, well, it leaves a scar. It becomes part of the company's DNA. And believe me, the exodus has been real. Today, you've only got one major American player left standing in Venezuela, and that's Chevron. Think about that. That fact alone just screams how high the risk has been for years, way before this new plan was ever even on the drawing board. Okay, so we've heard the government's big pitch, and we've heard the industry's very cautious reply. Now let's bring in a third voice, the independent analysts. You know, the folks who actually crunch the numbers and tell us what's realistic. And this chart, wow, it's a huge reality check. Over on the left, you've got the administration's massive $100 billion dream. In the middle is what experts at Rystad Energy say is needed every single year, about $8 to $9 billion, just to get production up. But then look all the way to the right. That's what analysts think is actually likely to happen anytime soon. From smaller companies, maybe 50 million. The gap between these numbers is just staggering. And this quote from a former diplomat, David Goldwyn, it just perfectly nails the vibe in that White House meeting. The execs are saying all the right things, being supportive with their words, but not with their wallets. It's the classic move, right? Smile, nod, and keep your checkbook locked up tight. So here's the bottom line. For the experts who study these markets for a living, that big headline number, $100 billion, isn't just ambitious. They're calling it fantastical. It's a political number, not an economic one. At least, not right now. Okay, so with this giant gap between the dream and the reality, what's the actual path forward? What has to happen to make this work? And what is the U.S. government doing on the ground right now to make it happen? For big-time players like Exxon to even think about jumping back in, analysts say they need these three things, and they're totally non-negotiable. First, they need to know their people and their expensive equipment will be safe.
Second, they need legal guarantees that their contracts won't just be torn up. And third, the taxes have to make sense. Without that basic foundation, forget it. Billions of dollars are going to stay right on the sidelines.
In the meantime, the U.S. isn't just sitting around and waiting. It's actively trying to build this system of control itself. U.S. forces are seizing tankers, setting up their own process for selling the oil, and then funneling all the cash into Treasury accounts. They even issued an executive order to shield that money from lawsuits. This is the U.S. trying to single-handedly create the stability that these companies are demanding.
And that all leads us to this one final massive question. On one hand, you've got the biggest proven oil reserves in the world, an unbelievable prize. But on the other hand, you've got this terrible history of chaos and seizure that has scared off investors for years. Closing that gap isn't just about a new policy. It's about rebuilding trust from the ground up. And whether that can actually happen, well, that's not just a $100 billion question for investors. It's a question that could change global energy markets and American foreign policy for decades to come.